Thank you, everyone, for joining me here on the High Ground podcast. I am excited. I always love doing these like character specific episodes because we can do some deep dives into them. And today we are talking about Kylo Ren slash Ben Solo. So I want to kind of start by let's go around, have everyone introduce themselves. So I want to hear, who are you, how you got started with Star Wars, um, what is it about Kylo Ren, and what is your favorite Kylo moment? So I hope that's not too much, but yeah, we'll start with Jay.
All right. My name is Jay. On TikTok, I'm Jaywindu. And the way I got started into Star Wars was through my mom because she grew up with the original trilogy, and she told me and my sister that she wanted to show us these movies. So we watched 1 through 6 at the time, and I fell in love with them. And I didn't really understand them because I was only 6, but I just loved the action and the lightsaber battles. But what's it called? I watched Clone Wars and Rebels and just understood it more and more, and I just fell more in love with it.
Awesome. No, love it. All right, and then you did tell me Kylo Ren was your favorite character. Well, what do you like about Kylo Ren, and what's your favorite Kylo Ren moment slash Ben
Um,
Solo?
I just love I like how he's he's different from other villains that we've seen in the past. Of course, because he's not a Sith. He's not a Sith, but he still uses the dark side. And I just think he's a super cool villain. And my favorite Kylo Ren moment was probably in the Last Jedi when the First Order was attacking the Resistance, and Kylo Ren was in the ship, and he was about to shoot the window that Leia was in, but he chose not to. He hesitated and I like that because it showed that he still had good in him, and you could see that he had emotion and he cared. Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely like one of the most complex characters in Star Wars. Full stop. And like that's what I love getting into is like the deep, the nitty gritty of them. But Brooke, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, my name is Brooke. I'm BDazzler on TikTok. Um, I feel like I have a kind of out of the ordinary experience with Star Wars because it wasn't really something I actually grew up with. My parents weren't really into it. I was more of like in the Disney movie. I was a Disney kid. So I specifically remember watching The Phantom Menace when I was like 6 years old and just being really confused. Um, Honestly, I'm still really confused when I watch that movie. But it wasn't until I started dating my current partner he's a huge Star Wars fan. So he showed me all the originals. This was right around the time The Force Awakens was about to come out. And I still really wasn't super invested. So I ended up actually dropping him off at the movie theater to see The Force Awakens. I had to work, I think. So I didn't see that in theaters. I didn't watch it until like months later. But then when The Last Jedi was about to come out, I was like, okay, no, I want to see this. Like, I had watched The Force Awakens, and I think I was a little more interested in it at that point. So The Force Awakens was my first theater experience with Star Wars, and I absolutely fell in love with it. The Last Jedi is now my top favorite. But yeah, so I've been into it ever since then.
Nice. And is he here in the chat? Any chance?
He is not. He's playing COD over in the other room. I told him to join if he wanted to, but we'll probably watch it later.
That's fine. It's all good. And last but not least, Mary Lou.
Hi guys. Oh, also, Brooke, I don't know if you want to talk about why you connected to Kylo Ren.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did skip
fine.
over that. Yeah, Brooke.
It's all good. I feel like I'm always really drawn to very complex characters for sure. And it's even better if they're tall, dark, and moody. Like I think Snape was probably one of my first like character crushes when I was reading Harry Potter. And I think because The Last Jedi was my first theater experience, that is where we see like so much of his complexity is why I just really fell in love with his character. And over the course of the 3 movies, I just think he's so interesting and has such a uncommon like story arc.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And Mary Lou?
Hi, guys. My name's Mary Lou. I go by Miss Eggy on TikTok. Brooke, it is so nice to finally meet you.
Yes.
When he mentioned that you were going to be on, I was like, yes. And Jay, it's Jay, right?
Yeah.
Hi, it's so nice to
Hi.
meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you. So for me, I've been into Star Wars my entire life. I grew up. I always say like there's like a running joke with me where I'm like there are three things I love unconditionally, and that's my parents, my brother, and Star Wars. Like I have no memory of first loving them. I just love them. Like we always had the original trilogy on when I was a kid, and I loved it. I loved it, and I saw so I've been a lifelong fan. I saw the prequels in theaters. And then it was kind of fun because the original trilogy was like my childhood, the prequels were my adolescence, and then the sequels are my adulthood. And so so I just loved it my entire life. And for Kylo, it actually took me a while before I used to say like, oh, he's one of my favorites for a really long time because if and I think that maybe we can all of us who he is our favorite character, I think we can all relate to like saying Kylo Ren is your favorite Star Wars character. Sometimes elicits interesting responses from people. Well, have you seen the originals? Like, yes, I've seen the originals. Like, like, yeah, yes, I have. But finally, I admitted it to myself like about a year ago. I was like, no, he's my favorite. He's my favorite character. And yeah, my favorite, I just really connected with his very unique journey as a character. And I related a lot to to kind of his struggle and what he overcomes. And my favorite moment, that lightsaber comes out behind his back, man. I mean, that oh my god. And the shrug, oh man, it just absolutely, my heart fell. I mean, it's that or when he smiles for the first time and the last time. That is just both of those moments are just very wonderful. So I'm so excited to talk about him.
Absolutely. And then also I have Bethel 77 or the Michael Potter from TikTok say that they should make a young Snape movie with Adam Driver.
I keep seeing that everywhere.
Work.
And it would just destroy Brooke.
Right.
But yeah, all right. So we'll jump forward. So first, I kind of want to talk about his journey through each of the films and kind of go around and talk about that before we drop down to that next layer of getting to those deeper themes. So obviously, we are. Oh, I should probably start with actually introduce myself. We all know my story of watching Empire Strikes Back over and over again. But when it comes to Kylo Ren, again, he's a character that has a lot going on under the surface. And for me, that's why I love Star Wars in general. You know, A New Hope starts as a very simple black and white story of good versus evil. And then as soon as you get to the next level, it stops being that simple and it starts adding complexity. And the bad guy wasn't always bad. He was bad for specific reasons. And then the good guy is debating whether or not to destroy the bad guy. And in the end, he shows him love and kindness, and that's how he wins him over. And it's such a unique story because it's not the same child's power fantasy that we normally expect. And so that's why I love it. And then Ben is the epitome of that depth, of that struggle. And so that's why I really like him. I have to say though, if I am looking at the films, the intensity of his fight with Luke has to be my favorite because there is just a lot broiling beneath the surface of both of these characters. And I do little things to make it apparent, like Luke has the blue lightsaber, like that was just destroyed a minute ago, but in his rage, he can't see it. And a bunch of little things like that. It's just really cool. But yeah, let's jump into those films. You know, first we meet him in The Force Awakens, which, by the way, his shuttle, the all black one, is just sick looking. And man, when he was introduced, he looks like he's just sheer power. So cool. Jay, what are your thoughts about Kylo Ren through The Force Awakens?
Force Awakens, yeah, I remember when they first introduced him, he stopped the bullet in midair. I thought that was so cool, seeing that opening night. And just seeing all these new Force abilities that we've never saw, like how he stopped Rey from moving. And yeah, like you said, he looks like he looked like a super powerful dude. And yeah.
What were your thoughts when he took off the mask for the first time?
Oh, I was not expecting him to take off his mask. I thought he was gonna be like Vader, like it was gonna what's it called? Like it was gonna be suspenseful to see what like he looks like. We'll like learn it from the like in the last movie what he looks like. But yeah, it was different seeing him take off his mask. And I thought he was gonna be older, but he's young.
Yeah. Yeah, and I thought that was really an important way to differentiate. Like, this is not Vader, you know. But how about you, Brooke? As we go through The Force Awakens, what jumps out at you?
Yeah. Well, I just watched The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi in the last couple of days to kind of prep. So I've got a lot of notes, but I'll try to keep it not super long. My first note is, first of all, his ship is so damn cool because it is when it comes out. So like when we first see him, you're like, oh, like it's the new Vader, right? Because I kind of think that's what they wanted everyone to think. But we start to see those like the literally the mask kind of peel away, or like the, you know, menacingness of him that we see him at first kind of be stripped away. And I think when we see him in front of Snoke. So right off the bat, we know that he's not like the big bad. Like in the originals, we don't find out that it's not Darth Vader that's really pulling all the strings until later in the trilogy. So right off the bat with that, and then when he takes his helmet off, like we know that there's definitely something different about this guy, and he's definitely different from Vader. So I think that already added more layers to him than Vader, at least in the first movie, if you're just comparing him to Vader in A New Hope. Because obviously that changes, but he also is he's so much more unhinged. You can tell that he is probably a lot younger. I think Vader had a lot more control over his anger when we first see him in the original trilogy, and it's very clear that Kylo does not have a lot of anger management control. And then I think it's cool that we get he's the son of Han Solo very early on in the movie too. So that already adds like another layer to that as well. I love in the very beginning, the old guy, I can't remember his name, when they're on Jakku. Yes, he's great. But he says, you can't deny the truth that is your family. And so that already gives us like a little hint that he's going to be an important character. So I just think it's really cool, at least through that. And then as we get through The Force Awakens more and more, he just starts, those layers kind of start coming off, and we start to see that he really is just like a little boy in a mask, essentially.
No. and your thoughts, like when the mask came off. So I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of people, Adam Driver is a beautiful man, but when the mask first came off, I thought he looked like a wet dog. That's what I saw.
It was. I can't remember.
Why the long face, buddy?
I can't remember what my first thoughts were. I think because the first time I watched The Force Awakens, I was just kind of watching it to watch it, not really watching it to be really into it. So I remember the second time around, obviously he's a very attractive man, but I noticed that the casting was impeccable, because if you look at young pictures of Han Solo and young pictures, or Harrison Ford and pictures of Adam Driver, they actually look really similar, which is crazy to me. I think it's the nose. Mm-hmm. But I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, same. And Marilyn?
All right, so starting with The Force Awakens. So admittedly, interestingly enough, I didn't really have an opinion on Kylo after I saw The Force Awakens. I saw The Force Awakens and I thought he was fine. I was like, okay, he's fine. Like everyone kind of kept asking me like, oh, what did you think of Kylo Ren? And I was like, but my thing was like, I don't know yet. Because I was like, we're missing information. Like we only have 1/3 of a trilogy out. I'm not sure how I feel about this character yet. And for me, it was with The Last Jedi that I was like, oh no. I was like, oh no, might be my favorite character ever. But upon re-examination of the trilogy, I love The Force Awakens. It's one of my favorite Star Wars movies, and I love him in this movie. First off, we need to acknowledge what a smart move his conception, like the character's conception was, because when we examine fiction, like especially like shonen anime style, like adventure stories that are serialized, there is a very standard trope or very standard narrative device called like villain progression. Like every time our heroes defeat one villain, the next villain that comes up is more stronger and more powerful, and well, this gym leader is even more powerful. Like, oh man, like, we just defeated Frieza. Cell, it's classic. It's like it's used in everything. You thought season 1's villain was bad. Just wait till you get a load of season 2's villain. Like it's more powerful, more menacing. And Disney was incredibly smart because they looked at Darth Vader, possibly the most, I struggled to think of a fictional character more iconic in fiction. And they were like, yeah, no, we can't. No. They were like, no. We can't up the ante. We can't attempt. We're not even going to attempt to bring in a more powerful, more stronger, more iconic villain, and instead they're like, what if we just make him like a Darth Vader fanboy? And it's like, this is genius. Like, this is genius. And it was just such a smart move. And I just applaud them for that. And one of my favorite details about The Force Awakens too is how, and I think I mentioned this at some other podcast with you, Coco, but like and we already talked about it too, how like when Kylo shows up, he is peak Vader. He is scary and intimidating, and the music is popping off, and he is killing people, and he is, oh my God, and the stomping and the power. And as the movie goes, he just like it's suddenly these cracks begin to show, like Brooke said, like these cracks begin to show. And every scene after, we're kind of like, that wasn't very Vader-like. What is it? He's arguing with this like pasty guy, like, that's not very Vader-like. He's throwing a temper tantrum. That's not very Vader-like, until we are left with a literal child stomping his feet in the snow, yelling at a girl to give him his toy back. It's so funny, and it's so genius, and it is very purposeful. And I thought that was fantastic. And also, like, I think something that I noticed too was in the interrogation scene. I was examining his dialogue in that scene, and it's the scene where he goes, hang on, I have my computer up. Let me pull it up. He looks at Rey and he's like, and he says, "You're so lonely, so afraid to leave. At night, desperate to sleep. You imagine an ocean. I see it. I see the island." Like, I'm like, you're talking to yourself. Like, you're just talking to yourself. Like, you're so lonely. You're afraid to leave. He's afraid to leave the First Order. He doesn't think has a place anymore back home with his family. At night, desperate to sleep. My God, as the movie goes on, as the trilogy goes on, he looks shittier in every movie. He's like, looks exhausted. His hair is matted to his face. He's like shaking. He's got like, he looks like he has caffeine jitters. He's like, like, I hate this. And when he took his mask off, my reaction was, I had like 5 reactions. I was like, whoa, what? Like, this is so, what's going on? And I also, like, admittedly was like, masks are hard because we all build up what we think it is. So I feel like, I think everybody kind of went huh? When he took the mask off, because everyone kind of had this idea of what he looked like. And and of course, the most poignant thing is, again, like we said, like, he's not it's like Jay said, he's not an old man. He's a kid. And the moment he took his mask off, in retrospect, when I had rewatched it like a year later, I was like, he's going to get redeemed. There's no way, because he's revealing to us he's taken his mask off like so early. There's something brewing here, and I thought it was a really cool move. I love him in this movie. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I love how Jedi Master Sleepy was talking about your comments of him looking worse and worse. Like, he looks like he's strung out on the spice. But no, that's one of the reasons I love, like I said, how A New Hope starts as a very plain black and white, good guy, bad guy, and an Empire. You see, oh my goodness, he's so powerful. Vader's choking, he's killing all these people. But then you get a glimpse when the helmet's going on. Oh, that's a man under there, and he's like, he doesn't look like a strong man. He looks like he's seen some stuff. And then after that point, we get him talking and kneeling before the Emperor, and you realize, oh, he's not the big bad. They set that up here in the very first movie, where the same exact thing happened. Kylo Ren doesn't take off his mask until like an hour. More than that, it's pretty well into the film that he takes off the mask. Before that, he's like this terrifying, specter of a person that with this otherworldly voice. And then, yeah, he takes off that mask, and that's when you see that the cracks start to show. And so when I saw it, I actually was like a lot of people, where I was like, oh, well, he's no Vader. And I realized, oh, that's the point. Oh, okay. And I actually think that's a lot of the time that people have issues, is they're trying to place characters in these very specific molds, and the characters don't fit. And that's what makes them, disliked. But no, that's the whole purpose. But also in The Force Awakens, when they yell the name Ben, you hear his name for the first time. That part hit me in the heart too. Like, Ben, and I was like, oh, he's named after old Ben. And before anyone asks, Leia knows a lot more about Obi-Wan Kenobi than Luke does. Leia grew up with all the stories from her dad, her adopted father, Bail Organa. And Bail would send periodic updates to Obi-Wan so that, they would know what was going on. But yeah, Leia grew up knowing a lot more about Obi-Wan than Luke did. So that's why it still makes sense. And they named their kid after his chosen name, Ben. Anyways, huge fan of his character arc in that movie. Then we move to my favorite of the trilogy, which is The Last Jedi. And this is kind of where we get deep. This one, I'm going to start with Brooke.
Okay. I feel like coming off of The Force Awakens, I, and probably like the majority of people, were feeling two things, or thinking two things. Like, A, who is this like emo, like knockoff Darth Vader? And B, holy shit, this guy just killed Han Solo. Mm-hmm. Because that's probably, I feel like Kylo's character is just like the epitome of like subverting expectations. Like, he is just written to do things that we never expect from him. I feel like they could have easily have just written him on the bridge with Han and just walking away from him, but they decided not to do that. So at the same time where we see him kind of being this like moody teenager type character, once we get to the end, he's just very like confusing because he kills his own father, but then when we see him fighting in the forest with Finn and Rey, once Rey gets the saber, he looks like afraid of her, like in awe of her. A lot of people think that he's angry, but he is definitely not. He's just like shocked. So he's very confusing, and I didn't really know where they were going to go with his character. Moving into The Last Jedi, and I feel like the entirety of The Last Jedi, he's continually subverting those expectations that we have of a classic villain, which is great. Now, like upon re-examining The Force Awakens, we see these little tidbits that there's always been kind of light still in him. I mean, he even says it halfway through the movie, like, I still feel the pull to the light, but now we can see kind of the clues throughout the entire movie. So moving into The Last Jedi, you can tell that from the beginning, he's already like even more torn apart than he was in The Force Awakens. Like I think the first scene, or if not one of the first scenes, we see him in the throne room finally with Snoke, like in person, and he immediately kneels down just like Vader does with the Emperor, but he just almost looks like a scared like puppy almost, and Snoke is kind of mocking him like, you're just a child in a mask, like take that crap off, like you don't need that, like you're not actually Vader. Like he says, he says bested by a girl who had never held a lightsaber, you're just a child in a mask, things like that. So he's just like kicking him down. So then when we see him in the elevator and he, smashes his helmet, that's like the last thing that we would expect, but he does it out of anger. But I think it also symbolizes the movie's whole theme of letting the past die, because he, I think, is finally coming to terms with like, well, if no one thinks that I'm going to be the next Vader, even Snoke doesn't think I'm going to be the next Vader, then I'm just not going to try to do that anymore, and just try to be more of whoever my own person is. So I thought that was really interesting as far as his kind of development. And I also noticed from the beginning that his intentions in the First Order, like he didn't really ever seem that invested in the motivations of the First Order. He was just kind of there because that was what like he wanted to be on the dark side, and that just happened to be like where the dark side was. He was using it, I guess, kind of as like resources to serve his own purposes. He never really seemed like he wanted power. He just, like, the whole time we see him through The Force Awakens, he wants to get to Luke because he wants to destroy Luke, and then throughout The Last Jedi he's constantly angry at, if it's not Luke, he's angry at something else. So when he goes on his ship and he starts like going towards the rebels, it was interesting because I was like, why is he even attacking them? Like, he doesn't seem like he was invested in that in the first place. But then we see that Leia's on there, and another, expectation that we had was he was maybe, he killed his father, so he probably is going to kill his mom too, and then he doesn't do that. So that was another kind of, clue to the light still being a part of him. He just couldn't do it. And there's just so much to The Last Jedi. I could talk about it forever. But yeah, he's just constantly subverting our expectations, especially when we get to the throne room scene. Like, I think that's probably my favorite moment, like that whole scene, but especially when he slices through Snoke is like the last thing I expected. I remember like goosebumps going down my entire body watching that in the theater. So I was like, what? And I know people were mad. I know people were mad because they were like, well, we didn't get any backstory on Snoke. Like, why? Like, we should have gotten more about him before that happened. Like, but it's not Snoke's story. It's about Kylo. It's about Rey. I don't think that the origins really matter. We don't have an origin for Palpatine really, other than he was the Chancellor, but we don't have anything really much before that. So I really liked that. And it just kind of left us wondering, like, I had absolutely no idea, even less of an idea of what was going to happen in 9 after that ended. So I really liked how it kind of just left everything open-ended for the next episode.
Yeah, definitely. And Mary Lou?
Okay, so oh man, heavy material. Okay, so this is the point where I'm going to talk about some. This is so silly. It's not silly. I'm going to talk about some dark stuff. So if I think that if there is people who are sensitive to like predatory behavior, maybe if just as a warning, just in case. So I remember the day I saw The Last Jedi was first off, really quick, Brandon, what I thought was really funny was when you said like, my reaction was he's no Vader. I wrote a term paper on Kylo Ren. Yes, and the title was he's no Vader. And like it's like in like the thesis was that's the point, like that's the whole point. So I just thought that was really funny. But so when I went to go see The Last Jedi, that was one of the wildest days of my life. I was so busy. Oh my God, so much was happening. We get to the theater and I was just like, I just want to sit down. Like my whole day was so hectic. And we sit down and the movie started. I had no expectations going in. I was just kind of like, okay, well, what do you got, Ryan Johnson? And it was so surreal because like in real time, I was like, whoa, wait a minute, wait. Like, what are we, whoa. Like I in real time, I was processing, like, I think this guy is right about everything. I think that he's might be the secret protagonist. Like, I don't know what's going on. And his relationship with Snoke, oh man, Snoke. So fun fact, like about just like my own opinion, like the scene where we meet Snoke in person with him and Kylo, and Kylo goes in, like Rick was talking about, that is in my top 3 favorite scenes in all of Star Wars. It's constructed perfectly because it's one of my favorite examples of like hidden exposition. It's not a character looking at the hero and going, well, back in 25 years ago, like, it's not like forced nonsense exposition. It's exposition, but it's hidden in really strong character moments. And it is tight. You get everything by the end of those, 2 minutes, you get everything that you need to know about who this guy is and what his relationship is to Kylo. And to preface this, before I go on, I want to make sure I talk about the fact that, like, because I know when I say what I'm about to say, a lot of people are going to go, oh, but Palpatine did the same thing. Palpatine did the same thing to Anakin. And yes. But here's the thing about, in terms of grooming, gaslighting, and abuse. Yes, he did. But the thing about Palpatine is that Palpatine never steps over the dad line. Palpatine sees Anakin, sees that he's missing a father, and he's like, okay, got it. I know exactly what role I need to fill for you in order to get you to do what I want. And he comes into Anakin's life when Anakin's about 8 years old, and periodically their relationship grows when Anakin physically sees him. But with Snoke and Ben, it's the line is a little bit blurred there. He's in his mind all the time. All the time since he was born, even before he was born. And it's just more creepy. Like, there is a shot, I don't know if they ever, I just know they filmed this because I was watching some behind the scenes stuff for The Last Jedi, but there was a shot they didn't use where Snoke reaches out and wipes a tear off of Ben's face. And it's like, you see Andy Serkis reach and touch his face, and like, and I want to make this abundantly clear. I am not implying that Snoke behaved in a way that we associate with child predators. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not implying that, but it's undeniable. It is undeniable fact to me that he was modeled after that. He behaves exactly like that. He meets Ben when he's young. He creates a sense of mistrust with his family. Oh, your parents don't understand you, but I understand you. You can trust me. Come to me if you need anything. He separates him from his family. That's what that's what abusers do. They separate you from your friends and family. They cut off communication, and they do and I know that there's a psychological term for it, but it's like I kind of refer to it as like it's like carrot then stick in terms of behavior, where like you know that Snoke told Ben to dress like that. Like, you know that he did. You know that he was like, oh, you want to be like your grandfather? Oh, you should wear this helmet. Oh, you should dress like this. Oh, you're going to look so cool. It's going to be so great. And then Ben does it. And then he's like, what are you wearing? You look stupid. You look dumb. Take that ridiculous thing off. That's what abusers do. They tell their victims to do something. Their victim does something, and then they're undermined immediately. And it's classic. Like he was like, oh, you want to be on the dark side? Oh, you have to kill your father. And then Ben goes, okay, I killed my father. Like, I did what you told me to do. So you're happy with me now, right? And Snoke, no, because you're still sad about it. And that's not good enough. Like, and that you're weak, you're stupid, you're nothing. Like, it is like, I'm watching the movie and I'm like, Rian Johnson knows exactly what he's doing here. And I found it to be profoundly compelling and very disturbing. And one of my favorite details is when it is the throne room scene when he kills Snoke. What I love about that scene is that there are so many interpretations of that scene. I've heard so many people give their interpretations of that scene. Like, people are like, no, it's bad because he killed his master. Like, that's what Sith do, right? So he's like super bad now. And like, and that's a valid reading. It totally makes sense. Even though he's not Sith, it's a valid reading. But for me, the victim just killed his abuser. Like, this is awesome. Like, this is celebratory. Like, pop the champagne. This fucker is dead. You killed him, and it's very telling that Snoke, and this isn't in the case of all victims, like everyone is different, but like, I just find it so profoundly powerful that Snoke literally kicks Ben, kicks him, and Ben does nothing. But as soon as Rey is threatened, he's like, no, you can hurt me. You can't hurt her. You're not going to do this. And it's very powerful. And it's just, oh man, it's just so good. And it's so just I just love it. And I mean, and there's so much more to talk about, but like, I'll cap it there. It's great.
And you also have the exact opposite side of that coin with General Hux, where he treats Hux the same way, and Hux admires it and is still very much in it,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like you were saying, Marilu, their relationship was just like
weird.
I mean, just to add a little emphasis, I actually want to grab a little something and share it. So this picture comes to mind.
Oh, don't you dare. Why didn't you warn me? No.
Sorry.
Oh.
But he like says, I'm so pleased you came to me, and hugs him, and like it's
made me feel so icky when I saw that.
Yeah.
It's so gross.
Wow.
It's so gross. And like the way Ben hesitates and he's like, okay, like, oh, we'll get to that comic later. Oh man.
Yeah. Sorry, it's where my mind went, so I apologize. But Jay, your thoughts on it? On his whole journey throughout this one?
Yeah, so The Last Jedi, seeing, like what Brooke said, seeing him kneel down to Snoke, and Snoke, what's it called? After just telling him to kill his father, and he does it, calls him a kid and berates him and all this stuff. And of course, Kylo Ren breaking his helmet. That was crazy to see him have like an emotional breakdown, because he knows that he's not Vader. But it's kind of similar to Empire Strikes Back, because Kylo Ren, he doesn't want to kill Rey, but he wants to recruit her, and after of course having that connection with her, that was so cool to see them actually being able to touch. Because, like, of course, in Empire Strikes Back, they only Vader and Luke, they were just talking, but seeing them actually like touch hands and then Rey going to Kylo Ren. After she went to Kylo Ren, of course he brings her to Snoke, and I was not expecting him to die right there, because I thought he was so powerful, because Rey turned on her lightsaber and he just pulled it away like it was nothing. And then of course Snoke saying kill the one that you really hate, you truly hate, and he ends up killing him. I was not expecting that. And for a moment I really thought that Rey and Kylo Ren were gonna be like a duo, because like Kylo Ren seemed conflicted throughout the whole entire movie. He looked like he wanted to be good and then bad and then good and bad. And I really thought that he was going to join the good side and they're going to take down Snoke. But then after they kill Snoke, of course, Kylo Ren asks Rey to rule the galaxy with him, just as Vader did. And yeah, that was pretty much it.
Yeah, oh man, I do love that scene, because both of them are fully convinced of the exact same thing. Is I can tell we are going to join together. Like, we are aligned, we are connected, and they're still diametrically opposed. And like how they shot that, it gave me vibes of the Wonder Woman scene when there's the explosion and they can't hear each other and they're trying to talk at the end of Wonder Woman. This gives me those vibes. But yeah, I mean, you guys really covered everything super well. But how we got the slow, before we see him as this, absolute power, and then we find out that was a facade, that was the mask that he took off. And we see him being this like little rage monster. But then when he connects and is talking to Rey, we see a different person. We see Ben for the first time. He has to try to keep doing this evil stuff. His journey's from dark to light, and so he's pushing himself to keep going down the certain path. And we get to see it, and we get to understand it, and like kind of sit with it and live with it. The Jedi as an organization failed him, just like they failed Anakin. And that is ultimately what I appreciated the most, is that he is Anakin without the stability that Padme brought him. That's how Anakin would be if Anakin did not have Padme. And to him, he thinks he's found his Padme, and that's why he's trying to do everything to like connect and keep that going. So I really enjoyed that, and also the sound design of this film, top notch. All the air gets sucked out of the room, and it's just them, and it goes from these broad open spaces to this like really personal moment, and also just a little bits of dialogue of like what's going on. Like I can see you, but not your surroundings. Can you see me? And he's trying to figure this out. He's like, oh, you couldn't be doing this. The effort would kill you. And then the second time, she's like, could you put on a shirt or something? And he's just like, whatever.
Well, she's so. I just love how feral Rey is my favorite. Like when he's straight up like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "Murderous snake," and he's like, "Oh, like I'm just trying to figure out the logistics of what's happening. You're coming in at like 100, girl, but like, okay, like, oh, it's so cute." And he looks so like, okay.
That's like, I hate when people are like, Rosemary Soup, she beats Kylo Ren. I'm like, every single time they fight, he just wants to have a conversation with her. He's not trying to fight back that hard.
Every single time. Yeah, he's just trying to like,
he's like,
hey girl.
I just want to talk.
Hey girl, what's up? What you doing?
Hi,
you know?
hi. Oh God, it's so funny.
But yeah, and I love this. Plus, when Luke comes in and the dome that they're in blows up, that's practical effects. That was not CGI. They blew up that building with him in it. Got it on the first take. I don't know. I just love that fact. It's just super cool. Um, and then we get to see the scene where when they are in the elevator going up. I love that scene so much because it is, it is Rey following Luke's journey through Return of the Jedi and getting on the elevator with Vader, certain that he's going to be able to turn Vader. And at the same time, this is also Kylo Ren is Anakin after saying, I can overthrow the Emperor and we can run our own kingdom. You know what I mean? This is like Revenge of the Sith Anakin and Return of the Jedi Luke together. And which one of these is going. And that was ultimately Rey's failure because she banked everything. Like Luke banked everything on being able to turn Vader. And he was right. She banked everything on being able to turn Ben. She was wrong. And when that hit and the way that they displayed that of, yes, they both have the same goal, but not the same ends. And we get to see that, we're watching Kylo Ren, who has always had all these legacies thrust upon him, right? Like his mother, the senator, the rebel leader who saved the galaxy, his uncle Luke, the Grandmaster Jedi. He's named after Obi-Wan Kenobi. He has all these legacies on him and he can't take it. And his truest self is closest to Vader, at least when he's young. And that's the route he goes. And then at this point, he can't even continue that. So he has to throw that away and try to find his own path. I don't know. I just think they did a beautiful job with his story, and him coming to that decision wasn't in the moment. He came to that decision when he didn't kill his mom. So, yeah, just beautiful movie overall. Sorry, I know we can talk for days on it. I would love to do that at some point, but we go into the ender, the Rise of Skywalker. This one I will start with Mary.
Okay, Rise of Skywalker. So, The Rise of Skywalker is my least favorite of the sequel trilogy. Overall, I probably put it somewhere in the middle of my overall ranking, but the frustration kind of came from the fact that they took Kylo in a direction that wasn't really something that I thought was best in term for the narrative structure. I still think it was fine. I was like, it's fine, but I had just like 5 other ideas. Like I was like, oh, okay. Like this is why when people like who hate The Last Jedi, like Rian Johnson didn't set anything up for JJ. I'm like, I had like 5 ideas, but okay. Like he sets it up perfectly, but fine, I guess. But what's actually kind of funny, because and what I'm referring to is the fact that they went full evil with him, like full evil. Like it was like, oh, he's the supreme leader and he is bad. And I'm like, oh. Okay. I had this whole other idea. I was like, oh, maybe Hux will stage a coup and then the Knights of Ren will chase him across the galaxy. Like, oh, that'd be cool. Like, but they didn't, they kind of went full blown evil. And because my whole thing was like, well, if Ben's going to live, he has to suffer. Like he has to suffer. So I was like, so for his crimes. So I was like, okay, so maybe in the first act, the coup gets staged. Second act, he suffers for his crimes. Like he's like in the freezing cold and the boiling hot, what have you. Cool. But they went in a different direction and that's fine. But what's funny is that I knew they were going to kill him. As soon, like, what's funny is that like, after this happened, I kind of blacked out in the theater because I was like, he's going to die and you have to be okay with this, like in real time as the movie's playing in front of me. And it's when he drops a head on a table. I was like, he's dead. He's dead. No way. They're not going to let him live. Like, I was like, he dropped a head on a table. Like, and I'm in the theater looking at the screen going, okay, so he's going to die. And you have to be okay with this. And you have to just come to terms with what's going to happen. So the second time I saw it, that scene came up and I was like, I don't remember this scene at all. Because I had just emotionally blacked out for 15 minutes. But yeah, even though it's not the direction I chose, I still think that the way that he dies is I couldn't have asked for a better way for him to go. He in the Skywalker man fashion, he is dumb as an empty jar of pickles. Oh my God, he is so dumb. He's like, I just love the idea like of him, like, because he's so extra, right? He has to be that most extra person because he's a Skywalker, and he yeets his lightsaber into the ocean, and he's like, all right, I'm good now. And then I love to imagine him being like, oh fuck, oh, I could have used that. Like, why did I shoot? Cut to him running. He runs into literally like the center of all evil in the galaxy with a hole in his sweater and a gun. I'm like, oh my God. Like, and he's like, it's fine, I can do it. And I'm like, I bless you. Bless your soul, you Han's. Like, oh my God, that is Anakin, Han, Luke. Oh my God, so dumb. Loved that. And what I love so much about the way that he goes is that he, like, Rey and him switch heroic roles in the finale of the film. Rey is the masculine. She's the one who's getting it done. She is the one who is exuding force and violence and action to get rid of the evil. And Ben Solo is the feminine. He's the healer. He heals her. He sacrifices for her. And I just thought that was so poetically beautiful because everything Kylo Ren did was force and violence and anger and and he's selfish, selfishness, and everything Ben Solo does is selfless and it's feminine and it's healing and it's sacrificial. And it's like, oh man, like, even though it broke my heart, I was like, man, I couldn't have asked for a better way for him to go out. So I was very happy, at least, that he was at peace. And the more time passes, the more I'm okay with it. The more I'm like, okay, he's dead. I still like, I'm still like, oh, come on, bring him back. Come on, you can bring him back. It's like comic books. No one's ever really gone. And so, but I'm also like, if it never happens, it never happens, and that's okay. But yeah, he's I still love him in this movie. Every scene he's in, I love it. I love their lightsaber fights, how like the setting keeps changing. I loved that. And he's such an asshole. He's when she spills the beads and he's like, so that's where you are. Like, it's just great. And just the idea of him supreme leader Kylo Ren, the most powerful evil. He's so evil. All he's doing is chasing his girlfriend. That's all he's doing. All he's doing is like, have we found her? Have we found her? Have we, like, and they're like, sir, like, we have things we need to do. And he's like, yeah, but like, where is she? Like, that'd be great. Like, it's just, he's such the, God, he's such
I have to tell her something.
It's really important that I find her. It's great. So, but yeah, and of course, I mean, I'll let someone else talk about Han's scene with him. It's phenomenal. But yeah, my least favorite for his journey, but Ben Solo content is Ben Solo content. I'll take what I can get. So I did love just seeing him and seeing his journey wrap up. So yeah.
Yeah, and I love how you touched on that in the end, because I have heard people say that Hux being the spy wasn't introduced early enough, but like, no, that was being introduced the entire time. These two guys are vying for command from the first film. One of them is clearly better suited to lead the First Order, and the other is Kylo Ren. And then they clearly hate each other. They're insulting each other, and Snoke is in there in the back, like, just throwing gas on this feud. And then Kylo Ren kills him, and he's like, "I'm the leader now." And he's like, "You don't even have the keys to the ship. Like, what do you? Why do you? It doesn't even make sense." And so, from that first moment when Ben's lying there and he's like, "Should I shoot him now?"
Yeah, he should have.
From that point, it is hugely telegraphed that they aren't getting along. He's seeking any excuse to take him down. And it's for those exact same reasons. He is not the right person to be in charge of this thing. And he's just, but I do love him like sneaking up and like, God, gotcha, grabbing the necklace. And it's like,
oh yeah.
stuff like that is just funny to me. Jay, what were your thoughts when it comes to the Rise of Skywalker?
Yeah, Kylo Ren finding Palpatine. I was very surprised about that. Seeing that Palpatine survived, I thought that was crazy. And then he reconstructed his helmet again, back in the mask, and searching for Rey, of course, again. And then, sorry, I haven't seen Rise of Skywalker in a minute, but then the fight where Rey and Kylo Ren near the water, and where Leia reaches out to him, and that's where like, and then Rey strikes him, and seeing her force heal him, that's what I just love about the sequel, seeing all these new force abilities. Like that was amazing to see. And then of course Rey leaves, and what's it called? Han Solo comes. I did see a TikTok, the edit with Anakin. I thought that was super cool, but it makes sense that Han Solo would come and speak with him, because Kylo Ren didn't really know Anakin like that. Yeah. But yeah, I'm happy that Kylo Ren did turn good. I knew he had to die because he did all this bad stuff. So,
would you prefer that he lived?
Yes, but yeah, but I already know that wouldn't be fair for him like to live after he did all this stuff to the galaxy and everything.
Yeah.
And yeah,
that would have been an awkward ride back to base, especially because she's in an X-wing, so she'd be like, "Hey, can you guys come pick him up?"
Yeah.
He wouldn't go back with her though. He would go off on his own. I feel like he'd be like, I gotta go. I'm new. That's an awkward Thanksgiving dinner.
Sure. I'm just trying to picture the holiday special, but like Ben is there and everyone's like, this guy. Like,
I brought cookies.
And like how pissed off Finn would be. Like, come on, man. Like, I've been there, you know. But that's a whole side topic. And Brooke, your thoughts on it once we get to Rise of Skywalker?
Yeah, so it's also probably my least favorite of the sequels. Probably for the same reasons as that Mary Lou has already said. But at first, after like I watched it the first time, I kind of like blacked out the entire time just because there's so much going on. So I had to go see it twice again, mostly for the Ben part at the end. But upon my second watch, I could like actually process more of it. So the second time I really disliked that they decided to give him his helmet back, or decided to like put his helmet back together. And I was just like, oh, this is just, you know, merchandise stuff. And I feel like it was just a regression of the progress he had made as a character in The Last Jedi. But the more I think about it, the more I'm okay with them doing that, because throughout the whole trilogy, we see literally him removing the mask, but really any time that he is lacking a piece of clothing, he kind of is like more vulnerable, because it's whether he's taking his mask off, or in the hut scene with Rey, he's taking his glove off, and he's like the most vulnerable we've seen him yet at that point. He doesn't have a shirt on. I know we all want to like laugh at that part, but like that's another kind of like it humanizes him a little bit. He's not just like this, you know, emo guy in all black. Like there's a person underneath of that. So it kind of makes sense that I'm
a person.
regressing.
My name is Ben.
Exactly. But it kind of makes sense to me after I think about it that he would want to kind of regress back to that. You know, if he didn't like how vulnerable he was getting, especially when he offered his hand to Rey and she was like, no, I'm not taking your hand. He probably was embarrassed or upset over that and was like, well, if she doesn't want me, then and Snoke didn't want me and no one wants me, then I'm just gonna, become this evil being again, like I tried to be before. So definitely, like, the whole theme of the sequels very much is like finding your place and you're finding your identity. So he is definitely having an identity crisis in the Rise of Skywalker. So I'm okay with the helmet thing, and he does, even in the Rise of Skywalker, when he's taking it off, like the different parts, it's usually in front of Rey. So she is when he is more vulnerable as a character. So the more I think about it, the more I'm okay with it. Overall, for this movie, Adam Driver is just amazing. When he's not, even when he's not speaking, he is so good at his facial expressions, and you can like kind of guess how he's feeling, and it's different than you would expect a villain to react to things. Because we see him trying to recruit Rey the whole, first movie, the second movie, even a little bit. And then by the time we get to the third, when they're fighting over the ship that Chewie is allegedly in, and she destroys it, he's not like happy about it. He's like, looks scared of her. And so that's it wasn't what I was expecting, because you'd think it'd be like, yes, like she's coming to the dark side. That's what I wanted the whole time. So he just always seems like intimidated by her, like in awe of her a little bit throughout the whole movie, especially when it comes to their fight on the Death Star, because she is just on like another level of mad. And he's like, whoa, like I just wanted to talk, man, like it's okay.
Granted, she was going through some stuff at that moment.
She was going through some stuff too. Yeah, she was like
she's seen some
hypnotized
things.
by some stuff. Yeah, for sure. The scene with Han, I cried so hard, like every time I watch it. But I think he was the perfect person. I think they were setting it up for Leia, but because Carrie Fisher had passed, I think that's probably why Harrison Ford even came back to begin with. But I think he was the perfect person for his story to return, because that was kind of the split of his struggle with the light and the dark side. You kind of always could tell that he's had like daddy issues. I know they've hinted at him always having him and his parents like had trouble communicating with each other. He had always kind of shown signs of the dark side, and they just didn't really know how to handle it. So they kind of they pushed him off to Luke, and what they were doing, they thought they were doing what was best for him. They wanted him to learn to control his power, but because of his point of view and because of his manipulation with Snoke, he felt that they were just, tossing him off to another person. They didn't care about him. They didn't know how to handle him. So they just, gave the responsibility to someone else. So I think he's always had that issue with his relationship with Han, even before we even see him in the movies. And then that kind of like quintessential scene of him killing Han in the movie in Force Awakens is like really what starts him down his path. So having that come back full circle, having them replay that scene word for word as a memory, just in the way that we wanted it all to go instead of the way that it went, I thought was really beautiful. I know a lot of people wanted to see Anakin, and I think that there could have been a place for him to show up. Like I love Element 7's video that he made. I also would have loved to see more of that post scene, maybe him walking through like the halls of the Death Star. I would have loved to see an Anakin show up somewhere in there, and then the Han scene to happen. I think that's like, if I could rewrite something in that movie, I would do it that way. But I just think that Han was the perfect person for that, because he forgave him. He was like, I forgive you for killing me. Like, I love you unconditionally, and I want you to forgive yourself for doing that too. And I think that was the perfect way for him to turn back to the light, just like in addition to Leia calling out to him. Yeah.
No, definitely. Oh, you mean having Han Solo as a dad, you might have trouble communicating with him?
No.
He wasn't you know, stay at home dad, drive you to soccer practice type. That's not. I mean, he didn't. The very first time Leia said "I love you," he said "I know." if that gives you any indication, not that he was emotionally unavailable, but their communication styles clearly would not be aligned. And yeah, I mean, this movie did do a lot for his story. Uh, Also, can we talk about it's from the novelization? Um, so sadly, it's not in
Oh
the film.
no. I think I know what you're gonna say.
Right, we all thought Chewie was dead, but Chewie got brought aboard the Star Destroyer. The way that they found Kajimi is that Kylo Ren interrogated Chewie, same way he does everyone, where he's trying to pull information out of his mind. And what he pulls out of his mind are memories. And he sees himself as a child, and he sees Chewbacca like holding him in his arms, and Chewbacca teaching him how to shoot, and Chewbacca teaching him how to ride in a speeder for the very first time. And that's what he pulls out first. He does eventually get what he wants, but it's like, it hits you in the feels. And later in the novelization, Lando, when he first gets back aboard the Falcon, he goes into Chewie's quarters and he picks up a hollow, the only personal thing that Chewbacca has in his quarters, and he turns it on, and it's him holding a little giggling baby Ben. Um, whew, yeah, there's some layers, and like you guys are saying, this is actually my least favorite Star Wars movie. It's at the very bottom of my list. Because there is a lot of stuff that I would have done differently, but there's a lot of things that it does get right, and one of them is the core of his character. Also, just a random thing. I love when he first comes aboard the Death Star 2, because it looks like his foot. It looks like his foot picks up.
Yes.
I don't know if anyone else thought this in the theater.
Yes.
But the Wayfinder is, and it looks like a foot, and then it wraps around it, and it comes up, and it's his hand. And it's like, oh, that was super weird. I guess
I've seen really funny fan art of he has ostrich feet and he pulls it up. Oh, it's so funny. You're not alone.
Is it possible to learn this power?
Oh God.
But yeah, and I do agree that seeing Han and having that be what brings him back was a great touch, because it was very, I don't know, sliding glass doors, if that makes sense, where that was the crux, that was the fork in the road where he could have gone in either direction. So I do love that. And I gotta say, I mean, I knew he was gonna die before this all started. So I didn't have that same revelation as you, Mary Lou, but they said, "Oh, this is gonna be the end of the Skywalker saga." I'm like, "Oh, so he's gonna die. Everyone's gonna die, because if all the Skywalkers don't die, this is not the end of the Skywalker saga, right?" That was just how I viewed it. But yeah. I mean, let's go into some of the other themes of let's do the light and the dark, kind of both of them together. And I'm curious, because we get to see, we know that Anakin was this bright boy with a big heart, all light, all sunshine, and that got corrupted and turned him dark, versus Ben, who we knew had a connection to the dark side from the start, and he went from dark to light. And I'm curious on your guys' thoughts on how the dark and the light and his struggle between the two, how this manifested and what it might mean. I'll start with Jay.
Wait, can you say it again?
Just how you feel about Kylo Ren's struggle with the dark and the light, and Like what does it mean? Can we learn anything, or just your general thoughts on it?
Yeah, what's it called? With him being consumed with the dark side since birth, I know a lot of people on TikTok say like, "Oh, Luke was just trying to kill him because he had like a bad dream," but that's not true. He was literally consumed with the dark side, and
he's like 23 at that point. He's not like a little kid, and no, he didn't have a bad dream.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's such a, I know, it's such an interesting concept because from Luke's perspective, Luke has seen this kid just be dark, and then in his attempts to show or to hide that, when he looks in his mind, it was far worse than he could possibly imagine. And like the sounds that you hear are actually similar to the sounds of the system being blown up with billions of lives. And if that's what Luke saw, God, that's got to be crazy. Because what do? Like, you have your duty as a Jedi. Do you take him down? Or you have your duty as a human, as this boy's uncle? You know what I mean? Like, and that's why, is the Jedi way the right way? And it just brings in some really interesting interplay. And so I like that. Marilu, sounds like you have a thought on it.
Oh, of course. I mean, yes. Well, I have to say, though, I still think I disagree with you guys on that. Amicably, of course, because you guys are using Minority Report rules. You guys are doing pre-crime over here. Oh, you will do these things. But Ben hadn't done anything. He hadn't done anything yet. What's the crime? It's hard, and I agree with you, because it is like, if I was Luke, I'd be like, what do I do? I also, and it's not a theory that I'm married to or anything like that, but I do think that there's a possibility that Snoke was there all the time, and part of me thinks that he planted those in Ben's mind so that Luke would see them. They weren't organic thoughts that Ben was having. Snoke placed them there because he's like, Luke's going to see these, and it's going to be the breaking point. And I love, and it's like, and it's like, I love that scene. I think because like, and the thing that always drove me crazy were people who were frustrated that, Han, Luke, and Leia, especially, Luke, didn't do more, or he almost killed Ben. It's like, that just makes them super more interesting to me. Like, I love that our original trilogy heroes are flawed. I love that they are partially responsible for the new trilogy's antagonists. I mean, you want to talk about it's poetry, it rhymes, like, holy crap, like, that's perfection. And it's tough. Like, I empathize with Luke there, although I still think that he could have just, talked to him. That would have been good. No one in this family talks to each other. They don't really talk to each other. Like, it probably would have been better if he okay, I'm going to decompress, and tomorrow I'm going to make him some waffles, and we're going to talk about this, and we're going to talk about our feelings. And I think that would have been a place. I'm not saying it would have solved everything, but it would have been a place to start. And because it just feeds into Snoke's, manipulation, where he's like, your family doesn't understand you. Your family doesn't care about you, but I care about you. Like, they're going to turn their backs on you, but I won't. It just feeds into this. It's so awful. But in terms of like the light and the dark too, it's like, I always say that Anakin kind of danced into the dark side. He kind of like waltzed into the dark side. And I feel like Ben Solo was dragged kicking and screaming into the dark side. Just the idea. And again, like, I don't want Anakin stans to get mad at me. I love Anakin. Like, I'm not implying that he, but like Anakin, there was just darkness there already. And Palpatine just kind of fanned the flames. So with Ben, it's the idea of like how long Snoke played this game. Like, he played the long game with this kid. He was there since he was a baby. Like, Ben Solo thought this was his imaginary friend. He thought this was his friend. And just the slow poisoning, the you see it in the Rise of Kylo Ren comic where I'm going to get so angry. It's when they're in the ship and Luke brings him with to the Jedi Temple, and Ben is so happy. And he's so happy because he's like, I'm with my Uncle Luke and we're going on an adventure and I'm so happy. And the moment he feels emotional validation, the moment he feels joy, who pops up? Snoke. Hey, Ben. Oh, how are you? Oh, you seem really happy. And Ben goes, oh, I'm so happy, Snoke. Uncle Luke's taking me with him, blah, blah, blah. And then Snoke, like the mother he is, oh, are you happy? Oh, are you happy? Oh, you seem a little frustrated. What's going on? You seem a little he undermines everything this kid feels and makes him question everything that his, and then Ben goes, oh, I guess I am a little frustrated, and then there it is. And Uncle Luke won't let me explore my potential. And he's like, oh, it sounds like he doesn't understand you, but I understand you. I understand you, Ben. Like, it's just like, oh, it's so disgusting. And it's so awful. And it's like Ben Solo was a sweet little boy and he was just dragged kicking and screaming into the dark side. Because even when he gets to the dark side, it's clear that he's not completely comfortable with it. He's just like constantly feeling that pull of the light. It's also not a theory I'm married to, but I really think that Snoke in The Force Awakens knew that Ben was this close to just packing his bags. I think he knew that Ben was going to leave. So he's like, you have to kill your father if you want to be Mr. Darkseid. Because Snoke knew that once Ben killed his father, there's no going back. He can't leave. There's nothing. Like he has him forever. Because what one day Ben's going to wake up and go, oh, I'm going to leave, Snoke. You're full of shit. And Snoke's going to go, well, you think you can go home? Oh, you think you can go? You think your mother loves you? You killed your father. Like, no, there's no place for you here. The only place for you is right here with me. And it's just, he's the worst.
And that's what he says to Rey. You can't go back to her, just like I can't go back to her.
Yeah. It's great. But yeah, great. It's phenomenal. Light and dark. Great push and pull there.
And also, just to be clear, I am not talking Minority Report rules with pre-crime. What I am saying is that Luke has had a constant through line of fear.
Yes.
And Skywalker men have a habit of seeing a potential future, reacting to it, and causing it. That's the solid through line through all of these films.
Damn.
And so and Luke has, for Luke, it's the same exact test each and every time. He goes into the cave, sees the vision of Vader. Okay, first thought, violence. Ignites his lightsaber, takes him down. Yoda calls that a failure, right? Then he goes seeking Vader to go kill him. Violence. Loses a hand. It doesn't end well. Third movie, he goes to Vader not seeking violence. Gets incited to violence. Almost strikes him down. All right. It stops at the last minute. That's the first time he has ever passed that test. This time, same exact test. He sees the vision. He sees all this darkness. He reacts to it. He ignites his lightsaber. Why did he bring his lightsaber? It's just like the cave when Yoda says, your weapons, you do not need to take them. And he's like, screw you. This might get violent. So that's more what I mean. And then one last thing.
That's an awesome point. You're right. It's the same test every time.
And then he finally fully passes it in The Last Jedi, where he approaches him without any violence, which Element so eloquently brings out. He's not even there. You know what I mean? You can't get any more non-violent than not being there. And then also, I know this is kind of the last topic, but I did want to comment on him picking back up the mask in the third movie, because to me, that was him. He never intended to join Palpatine. Like, he made that clear in the movie. That was Palpatine was an ends to a means to him. And so this time picking up the mask actually was a mask, was him hiding his true intentions. And so that's why I was okay with it. But the mask is fractured because it's still, he's seeping through it at this point. Like, and that's how I interpret it, but that's whatever. But yes, Brooke, themes of light and dark, and Ben.
Yeah. Well, first I was gonna say, like, when they say Rey's not a Skywalker, because she's very trigger happy with her lightsaber, just as the other Skywalkers seem to be. Just wanna put that little tidbit in there. But Ben has a complicated, interesting relationship with both the light and the dark side. And I feel like I'll probably make some of the Anakin stands mad. But I feel like Ben never really had the choice because Snoke took it away from him. Snoke took everything away from him until he was left with nothing and said, "This is all you have. I'm all you have." So he took that choice away. Whereas I feel like, yes, they did sense darkness in Anakin, but he was also given every opportunity throughout his arc to choose light over dark and often made the wrong decisions. So I'm not going to say that it's all completely Anakin's fault that he fell to the dark side, but I feel like there is a distinctive difference between the two of them, at least from what we know.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I had a brain thought and I have to say it before it goes away. And I'll start by asking you and have you also wrap up with everything else. I mean, this whole thing, especially with what Mary Lou was talking about, implies that he has no idea how a regular relationship is supposed to work, which is a very common thing with victims of these trauma. And that bleeds so well into how he starts out treating Rey throughout this whole film, of him being like, "You're nothing to anyone, but not to me." Mm-hmm. You know, that's trying to separate her from all these things. Or, yeah, your family's filthy junk traders. Like, you don't have a story, but stick with me and you got a story. And I'm curious if you can add your thoughts, because I may be a pleb, because that thought is entering my mind for the very first time. If you could, as you finish, elaborate on that, I would love that. Don't feel obligated to, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like even in real life, they say that, you know, you're more likely to become an abuser if you were abused, because that's really the only thing that you grew up knowing or have spent so much time knowing. So you, just like you said, Ben didn't understand what having a regular, healthy relationship with anyone was, because he always had Snoke in his ear saying, like, "Are you sure that you feel this way about his parents, about his uncle, about the Jedi, about his training, about everything?" So, and when he was left with just Snoke, he felt that because that was only what he had left, he was the only one that he had. That was like the only, he was the only sense of belonging that he felt like he had. So I think that he sensed that Rey also had that same like longing for, you know, finding where she belonged in the world. So he maybe took that as, well, I can show her where she belongs, and kind of treated it the same way, maybe not consciously doing it or with the same intentions, but still was doing that because he doesn't know what a healthy relationship is. And anyway, because, hello, cat. My cat just jumped up on me. Because he was so young, he's always had a complicated relationship with the light, because I felt like I think he always felt this pressure to live up to everything that the light side meant. He felt like he had to live up to, you know, his mother's legacy of being this amazing, you know, general in the rebellion, and like senator in the New Republic and this amazing human being, and Han was always seen as like a legend, a legendary pilot, a legendary this, and Luke Skywalker, he was the one that blew up the Death Star, he was the one that like turned Vader back to the light and did all these things. And I just think because of not only Snoke's manipulation, but also just because of his own probably identity crisis, he didn't know how to get there, and so he felt like he couldn't get there. And with Snoke in his ear saying, you know, all these people that are, you know, supposed to be good or supposed to be light don't care about you like I do. The light's not good, I'm good, like be there with me and I can give you everything that you've wanted, everything you've been looking for. So I think that that's why he struggled so much with the light, because I think deep down he wanted to turn back to the light, but because he didn't think that it was good, that he that's why he struggled with it so much. He's like, no, this is wrong. Similar, I guess, kind of mirrors Anakin saying, no, like the dark side is wrong a little bit. They kind of had opposite feelings for that. Yeah, and I love in the Rise of Skywalker, or the Rise of Kylo Ren comic, when he is talking to, I think one of the Jedi, he says something like, I'm not even a person, I'm just a name, just a legacy. So he never even viewed himself as an individual. He just kind of grouped himself into what he was born into. So he was constantly trying to find that belonging, which is interesting, because once he gets to the dark side, he finds out that it's not where he belongs either, because he's not accepted on that side just as much as he felt like he wasn't accepted on the light either. It's a very interesting dynamic.
Yeah, which is just really well put together, because that's Rey's journey as well. They have the exact same struggle, just from the exact opposite sides. He has too many legacies, she has none, and then he loses hers, she finds one of hers. I know, it's fascinating. And I know I kind of called on you earlier, Mary Lou, but did you have any closing thoughts on the themes of light and dark?
Well, I think all I'll add is that's a really good point, Brooke. I never thought about how like Anakin really did have he had the support structure to not go crazy. Like and it's like, and no one's perfect. Like Obi-Wan wasn't perfect and Padme wasn't perfect, and he did always have Palpatine there, but like, you know, yeah, Ahsoka, he was a hero, you know, he was already a hero. And you're right, he really did have he at least had a better setup, you know, than Ben did. And yeah, I mean that wraps it up, honestly, for light and dark for me. So I'm good to move on. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. And I anticipated. I felt like this was going to be a longer one, but it's so good. It's so good. There's a lot of meat on this topic. So I'd like us to kind of wrap up the next few things together. So we can talk about Rey, about family, about redemption, and the whole Skywalker legacy / curse, because those are all very closely related anyways. And so we can kind of put those into one, and you know, kind of what jumps out at you on these topics. And for this one, I'm gonna go to Brooke first.
Yeah. So like you said, this is my first note on the whole Rey section, that they share as many similarities as they do differences, because, you know, Ben on the outside grew up with everything. He had parents, he had the Jedi, he had his training, everything, while Rey grew up with absolutely nothing. Yet when they come together, they both feel just as abandoned, just as betrayed, and just as alone as the other. So I think that's why they first like kind of connected to begin with, because when Kylo was interrogating her, that's what he was projecting his own feelings onto her, because he was seeing the same things in himself when he was trying to like infiltrate her mind. So I think from the beginning, they both had that like shared trauma kind of brings people together. And I think when we see it in The Last Jedi, Rey's kind of the first person that looks at him like a human being, probably for the first time in a long time. After she gets over the initial, like, you're a monster, all this stuff, they finally see that they do have a lot in common. They share a lot of feelings and experiences. And with the loss of, Rey was looking for her parents and everyone. She was looking for it in Han, and then she lost that. She was looking for it in Luke, and Kylo brings that up. He's like, you're looking for something that you're not going to find in these people. You have to come to terms with that. And I think I think he's talking to himself too. Like, you have to come to terms with these people that you had all these expectations for are just not going to live up to those expectations. So, like, make your own. So it is great when they finally come together at the very end, when Ben finally redeems himself. And I love hearing Adam Driver talk about it, because he always talks about how Anakin's story was someone who had so much hope and lost it over time. And Kylo is someone who never really had it, but found it in finding himself and finding Rey, which is great. So I think that they brought different things out of each other that is out of the ordinary or out of the box of a normal, like, protagonist antagonist kind of story. But as we go along farther, we find out that they're two sides of one coin. Or yeah, they're two sides of one coin. They're both the protagonist of the story, which is much different than we've really kind of ever seen, as far as like mainstream media, when it comes to the hero's journey and the villain's journey. They just are very outside of the box. And I think that's what draws me so much to both of those characters, and how I relate to both of those characters a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And Marilu? Oh, well, sorry. One thing I do want to say is when Kylo Ren is saying all that stuff to Rey, especially like Han Solo, he's just gonna disappoint you too. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got was that when people are giving you advice, they're telling you what they needed to make sense of their personal situation. And that's exactly what he's doing. And yeah, he is certain that he's right. He's not. But from his perspective, that's all he's known. But Marilu?
Okay, so we're gonna do like a wrap up with Rey, family, and redemption. Okay. So for Rey, they're my favorite ship. I love them so much because, and I think a lot of the appeal of them as a couple to me comes from the fact that we don't get romances like these anymore. Like because here's the thing, like if Kylo and Rey's relationship was telegraphed super, super, super obviously, made abundantly clear, super obviously, I feel like in the first movie, a bunch of people would have checked out. A bunch of people would have gone, oh, it's for girls, okay. A bunch of this nonsense and checked out. But what I love so much about it is that it's so rare for us to get these grand, slow, epic kind of romances kind of over the course of like 3 movies. Like that doesn't happen. We don't really get that anymore. It's so mythic to me, which is just part of the appeal as well. But one of my favorite details is how one of the reasons why Ben really does fall, does feel so drawn to her and fall in love with her, I think, is I just like, I'll never get over how they have their first Force connection, and she's like, I hate you. And then by their
You're a
fourth,
monster.
yeah, you're a monster. By their fourth, she's smacking Luke with a stick, going, "What did you do? What did you do to him?" Like, it's so like, it's so funny to me, and it's so sincere. Like, Rey is so sincere, and it's like, now Rey is not the first person to go get Ben Solo. Like, Han has as well, but with Han, it's too little, too late a bit. He had the opportunity to go get Ben for 7 years, for a very long time. And what I love so much about Rey, and one of the reasons why I love her, is that she finds out what happened and she's like, "Oh, I'll go get him." No, go get him. Like, no. She's like shoving stuff in her bag. She's like, no, I'll just go get him. Like, and it's so naive, and it's so sweet, and it's so genuine, there is no hesitation. And I think that strikes a nerve with him. I think that he's like, "Oh, you're just going to come here." "Oh, okay." It's this very genuine thing for her to do. And it's so sweet. I think, and it's like, and I'm not really under any, I think that even if Ben lived, I do think that, they would have gone their separate ways. I do think he would have been like, "All right, I got to go, find redemption for myself across the galaxy. I hope we meet again." I really think that's probably how it would have ended. I mean, my girl brain wants a big wedding on Naboo, and they're so happy. But but my logic brain is like, no. But I really love the ship, and my other favorite thing about Kylo is that, well, first off, he's just an idiot. I'll never get over on how, like, he's like telling her to join him, and what it amounts to is he's like, "Marry me, you gross peasant!" Like, he's so bad at it, and it's like the Pride and Prejudice. I mean, I've heard so many people be like, that the sequel trilogy is just Pride and Prejudice in space. I'm like, yeah, it is. It's that midpoint, the Mr. Darcy proposal, where he's like, "Your family's gross, but we should get married." And Elizabeth Bennet's like, "No." "Is this how you talk to?" "No." And she's and then and Mr. Darcy's like, "What did I do? Does she not like me?" And then that's the halfway point, and then later they get together, yada yada. But I just immediately got those vibes seeing it. But I also, the thing that I love so much about Kylo is that there is never a point where Kylo ever is like, "Oh, girl beat me up. Oh, girl beat me up." Like, if Snoke says it, Snoke tries to make him feel bad about it. Snoke's like, "Oh, you were bested by a girl who's never held a lightsaber. You failed." But Ben is like, that's never something that occurs to him. He's never ashamed of it. He's never, he's intrigued by it. And he like Ben Solo's he's the best, because he literally gets his ass kicked by Rey. He's like, "I love you." He's like, "Oh man, that's my wife," and I think that's really sweet. And I have this headcanon where if he lived and they got together, all he would do is cook her food, because all she's eaten is inflatable bread, and she's never had like food. And I just have this like headcanon where all he does, he would just be a house husband, and he would just cook for her. And he'd be like, "I cooked for you. Here's your," it would be so cute. But all my cringe aside, I suppose. But I really like them together, and they're just a great dynamic. Light and dark, it's great for family. I think, and Brooke talked about this too. It is definitely this. The tragedy of it is that I think that and I don't think it was a conscious thought, but I really think that subconsciously, Leia and Han and Luke, it wasn't a question of like if Ben was going to turn to the dark side. It was a question of when. I think they all subconsciously, buried in their deepest shadow self that they tucked away at the back of their minds and their hearts, I think they just kind of all sort of assumed that this was going to happen, and they were just kind of waiting. And for Leia, and they all have their reasons for it. And I think for Leia, it's the saddest. Leia never got catharsis. She never got to know her father. She only knew him as the man that tortured her. And I think she internalized that. I think because of that, whenever she looked at her son, she saw her father. And I really think that was this chasm between them. She couldn't bridge that gap. She could not face that. And it's so understandable, and it's so sad, and it's so heartbreaking that she was scared of her son. I think she always was. For Han, put yourself in Han Solo's shoes. I mean, between Han, Luke, Leia, and Ben Solo, Han's the only one who's not in the Force Club. And I think he felt like Ben he was his son, but he was a Skywalker. I think there was a disconnect. I think there was this, he's like, I'm the only one not in the Force Club. I don't know how to connect with my kid. I don't think I'm probably not the right influence for my kid. I don't need to be around my kid. I think that, and Ben and Han loved him. Like, we get a lot of really sweet things with Han and Ben in the books, but there was a disconnect. And for Luke, Luke was blinded by legacy. Luke knew how to use Ben. He didn't know how to value him. And you see that. You see that in, Ben calls him, I'm pretty sure that Ben calls him Master Luke, like, all the time. Like, it's never Uncle. It's always Master Luke. And I think that there is, and Ben idolized Luke. I mean, you see it in the Rise of Kylo Ren comic. He's like, this is Luke Skywalker. He's a legend. Like, he idolizes his uncle. But I think that there was also this disconnect with Luke. Luke didn't know he didn't have that connection with his father. He didn't know how to connect with Ben. He didn't know what Ben needed. And I think that there was that disconnect there. So this family was set up. They all just kind of, I imagine Ben Solo kind of like on a piece of land, and there's just 3 broken drawbridges, and on the other side are his uncle and his parents. Like, no one can bridge that gap. No one can reach him. And it's just so tragic. It just breaks my heart every time I think about it. But yeah, that'll wrap that up. Awesome.
Beautiful.
Real quick, I just wanted to add, because I forgot that I had thought about this, to piggyback off of the Leia Vader relationship. After reading Bloodline, you kind of see that develop a lot more, because I feel like in the original trilogy, we never really got to see her internal struggle with the fact that Vader is her father, and Vader was the one who destroyed everything she ever knew and her whole family and her whole planet, and then tortured her. And I think in turn we get to see her, that she really did care about Ben. I just don't think that she knew how to interact with him that much, especially because he had gone away with Luke for at such a young age. And then in the book, it gets outed that her true father is Vader. And the first thought she has is, I haven't even gotten to tell my own son this. And I think we were talking about this in the Discord not too long ago. It was like, why didn't she tell him earlier? Why didn't she tell him from a young age? And I think it's because she hadn't processed it or come to terms with it herself. So she wouldn't know how to tell him and tell him how to process it through as well. So that definitely added to their complicated relationship.
Bloodline is my favorite Star Wars book. It's so good.
And until you stop and process it, trauma will beget trauma. Someone has to end the cycle, Mm-hmm. But Jay, your thoughts on Ben's redemption, on Rey, and on family, this whole Skywalker legacy / curse?
Rey, I think she's very overhated by the fandom, because like she's come from nothing. She was by herself on Jakku, stripping, looking for parts, and then using that money to buy food. And I think that's why her and Kylo Ren connected, because they both had nothing at all. I think that's why they had a good relationship. And hold on, give me a second. What was the question you said? What else?
Yeah, I mean, just your general thoughts with her when it comes to like her so Ben's relationship with Rey, the thoughts about Ben and his family and what family means to him in general, and his redemption.
Yeah, like you guys were saying about Han Solo, feeling kind of left out because he was the only one who didn't have the Force, and him and Ben didn't really have a great father-son connection at all. I feel like that's super sad. And then Luke and Ben not really having that good uncle nephew connection. So Ben really never really had a good connection with his family members, and that's pretty much what kind of caused them to fall to the dark side.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And God, like there's so much to unpack here. Like as you guys were talking, my mind was racing back to the novelization of it. And there's just one little part I just want to read real quick. And it's in chapter 14. This is also, it makes me laugh because after Rey healed Ben in the Rise of Skywalker, she just dipped. Like, she didn't say anything. There's no interaction. She's like, all right, gotta go. And just and dipped out, which just makes me laugh. But in that moment, it says, but his mind was in turmoil. He hadn't known such healing was possible, didn't understand it, how it had been done. But that wasn't the question that troubled him the most. Why had Rey healed him? Why would she do such a thing? Why had his mother loved him right up until her last moment? Snoke had lied about that. Snoke had lied about all of it. All of those voices in his head, torturing him throughout the years, they had promised him that a moment like this could never happen. They don't care about you, just their precious New Republic, and later, just their precious resistance. All lies. His mother had sacrificed herself to reach him, and then Rey had healed him at great cost to herself, in spite of everything he had done. He had failed to kill the light within himself because it had been all around him all along, in Rey, his mother, even his father. Hey kid, came a voice. Like, that's where Han pops up. And you're like, oh, come on, man. Why you gotta do that? Sorry for doing that to you, but that's all I could think about that whole time. Yeah, he was isolated. He was forced onto this dark side island and told, you have to stay here because no one else will love you. And he was trying to convince Rey of that. He thought she'd be trapped like he was, and it's not true. Yeah, there's always, I mean, the thing about hope is there's always room for hope, and that's the point. Oh, all right. So, and let's go ahead and wrap this up with this last round. And so, what I'm gonna have us do is talk about you guys work at Lucasfilm, at Disney. You have the green light stamp. You can green light any Ben Solo / Kylo Ren project, whether it's a what if or whatever you can imagine. You get to green light this story. What do you choose? And then also, if you have any closing remarks, and let us know where we can find you and your content. And I'll come to Jay first.
I would love to see like a what if Kylo Ren or Ben didn't die, and say if Rey and him got married and they had a kid. Just imagine how powerful that kid would be having Skywalker blood and Palpatine blood. I would just love to see that how they would train him and how it would be. And then you can find me on TikTok. I'm Jaywindu, Jaywindu.
Yeah, and thank you so much for coming out. And I always love seeing your content. And I need all the posters, especially
You're so cool.
It's so cool.
Thanks. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And then, and Brooke, same question. So you have green light any project, And any closing remarks on all of what we've talked about? And then where can we find you? Also, if I wanted to get amazing Kylo Ren earrings like you have, where could I find those as well?
Yeah. So, oh God, if I could green light anything, I just want the like world between worlds theory to be true, and that Ben finds himself in there, and we see even if he doesn't ever come out of it, if he just like finds his peace within that, like if we just get like a post Ben dying story, even if he doesn't actually come back, because we don't see him as a Force ghost at the very end. It's kind of left open-ended a little bit. I think the idea was that he gave his life force to Rey, so that's why he doesn't have a Force ghost. But if they could explore that a little more, if he could just find his like inner peace, like we could see that process happening, I would love to see that for sure. Closing thoughts. I just wanted to talk a little bit more when we were talking about his family redemption, everything, and then there's a note on like the Skywalker legacy curse. I think we see that once this like the Skywalkers become selfless is when, or they like forget about their own self or their own motives, and they give themselves up for something else, is when they truly, like, I guess you want to say, earn the title of Skywalker, because we see Anakin do it with Luke. We see Luke do it both for his father in the original, but also in the sequels. He does it for, his sister and the whole rebellion to escape. He, sacrifices himself. And then we see Rey do it when she, was going to sacrifice herself to Palpatine to save all of her friends. And then at the end, we see Ben do it as well. He gives up his own. We see Leia do it. We see for her son. We see Ben do it to save Rey, because he knows that she's the one that can continue the legacy on. But yeah, so I just want to add that. But you can find me on TikTok. It's B_Dazzler is my username. And I also have a lovely Etsy store where I sell lots of fun earrings. So it is Far, Far Away Factory, if anyone is curious or wants to look it up.
Awesome. Yep, and your stuff is the best. I actually did have someone was commenting on it in the chat, but we were so in the moment I couldn't I couldn't call it out just then.
It's all good.
All right, and last but not least, Marilu.
It was fun when you mentioned the earrings. I wanted to be to Brooke, plug your store, plug your store, because it is just so delightful. I love it. So okay, if I could green light anything, I would green light a story where Ben just goes across the galaxy seeking redemption. I think that my favorite manga of all time is Rurouni Kenshin. It's like that type of story. It's just a guy who fought in a war. He was an assassin. He did a lot of messed up stuff. And it's just a story about him finding peace and redemption and helping people. And it's just a great story. And I had so many cool ideas, because it's like, I also want to make sure I make it abundantly clear. This is my favorite character. And while I have a lot of sympathy for him, Kylo did a lot of fucked up shit. He did a lot of messed up stuff. I want to make that abundantly clear, because I know that that's a point of contention with a lot of people. Well, he did this and this and that, and yes, he did, I'm not implying that, he is a very empathetic character, but he's also kind of a dick. He's also kind of a dick sometimes. He's maybe not a dick, just woefully misguided in how he talks to women. He does, but just, oh my God. But he's not a perfect character, and I don't think that that, you know, giving him a perfect little happy ending with a little pretty bow on top, you know, I don't want that for him unless he works for it. You got to work for forgiveness. And so I would like to see him work for that. I would like to see him strive towards that in a piece of media. That'd be super cool. Closing thoughts. First off, I just want to say thank you because I have a lot of thoughts on this character. So I appreciate you guys letting me just go off and really be in the fields. I appreciate it. And I think one of my favorite, I just recently thought about was how, we tease whenever Kylo Ren is like throwing his temper tantrums and he's traitor and he's like screaming and he's carrying on. It's funny and I tease it all the time. But I also realize that every time I watch it, there's something weirdly cathartic about that. Like I don't know, like seeing him just in a room, just screaming, like it. I don't know, like I've been there. Like I have screamed, you know, like I have, you know, I've screamed until my lungs have bled. Like I have been in my own, you know, in dealing with your own stuff. Everyone carries stuff with them. Like I have broken things. I have screamed. I have just been miserable. And so like I watch him and I'm like, get it out, dude. Get it out. Just get it out. Like you're doing great. You're doing great, sweetie. Like I support your journey, you know? And the thing about Kylo too is that I think a lot of people who really connect with this character, you know, I've talked to people before where like, cause like I have like I had a Kylo keychain on my phone for a long time and I was a bartender for a long time and I would use the calculator on it, you know, and do stuff on it. And I would have people be like, oh, what is that? You know, and I say, oh, it's Kylo Ren. I really like Kylo Ren. And a couple of times I had men and I had women too, who were just like, oh, I love Kylo Ren. I'm like, really? Cause that's not usually the reaction you get. And I had a guy once who was like, oh, I just love him. Like and he couldn't really explain why, like he was having trouble kind of articulating what about the character he connected with. And, you know, and I looked at him, I was like, you know, dude, like, are you all right? You know, because a lot of people who have gone through a lot of trauma really connect to this character. And you know, and I could kind of see like the wheels turning in his head. Like I could kind of see the wheels turning with this guy. Like I could see him kind of putting it together. Maybe he was making a personal connection, and a lot of victims of abuse really relate to Kylo Ren. And I think that like he exhibits, he's a survivor. And I think he also exhibits like the dark side of victimhood. Like when people face trauma, when they face violence, if, you know, if they were hurt when they were children, you know, there's a dark path. Like if you don't have a support structure, if you don't have a venue where you can seek help, you can fall down, you can go down a similar path to him. And I think that's it, and I think that a lot of people really connect with that. And I think a lot of people, I connect with that. You know, I think a lot of people just, they see him as kind of like a dark mirror of themselves and of their experiences. And he's just a very special character to me. And he's just, man, he's great. And Adam, and it's like, I'm just pour one out for Adam Driver. It's an interesting, like as well written as the character is, I think if it wasn't casted right, it would have come off as like super whiny, super like over the top. And Adam Driver has such a wonderful subtlety to him that he, like, I mean, all we had was, you know, ow. But we got this full character. Brooke said it. We got this full character. You can see the physical change in him, in his body movement, in his actions, and just how he fights, how he moves. And I mean, they're when they connect through the Force and they stare at each other, it is like, that was one of the most powerful things I've seen like in a long time. And I remember Adam Driver saying, like, as long as he's with her, he's on the right path. And it's just like, oh man, it's just great. So thank you for having me on to talk about him. He's very special to me. So you can find me. I'm Miss Eggy on TikTok. And I just post a little bit. I've been branching out more with content, but like it's always going to be a Star Wars page. So that's where I'm at. And yeah.
I love it. I love it. We also, I mean, your interview is always super duper appreciated. For one, and we have some comment projects, right? So one is Poached Eggy presents Fantastic Bens and where to find him.
I know who made that comment. I know exactly who made that comment. Element wants me to do like a drunk live so bad. He's like, do it. And I'm like, oh, I don't know, man. It's just like, what's funny is that every once in a while, like I'd say like once like a month or something, I always listen to the podcast to the high ground at work. Like I put it on in the morning. It's like my little wake up thing. And every once in a while I'd be like, I wonder if he's going to ever do Kylo. I know you kind of had reservations about doing him because of like the thirst traps. And it's like, oh, he's kind of like, there's a lot of opinions on him and a lot of them are not safe for work, and that's great. That's great. I mean, everyone enjoy him how you like, but when you had finally sent me the message, I was like, it is time. I'm like, oh yes, here we go.
It's time.
It is time. The king has returned. But yeah, I don't even remember where the hell my point was going to be. Something I don't remember. It'll come to me later. But I was just very happy to get the message, and I was like, yay, we're going to do him. So
no, absolutely. We also had Jedi Master Sleepy here, Sith Lord Sleepy in TikTok. He said,
he's great.
From an Egg's point of view, a Ben Solo biopic written and directed by Miss Eggy.
It's just gonna be me crying.
And then my idea is just the title because you said it. Dark Mirror.
Yeah.
The Ben Solo story.
The Ben Solo story.
Yeah.
I remembered what I was gonna say. I remember like when you had messaged me, like this is real life, and I'm pretty sure Brooke will agree with me wholeheartedly here too. It's like when you had messaged me, I was like, oh, this is perfect timing because I just cried about him. So it's all out. Like it's all out. Like it's like, oh, I'll be totally in a good space. Like I could do this because literally like Luke Skywalker and Ben Solo, like I will be doing dishes and I will just start crying. It's like, they deserve so much better. Yeah.
I specifically only watched The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi because I knew if I watched The Rise of Skywalker either today or yesterday, I would have just been a mess.
Yeah.
Hey,
if you turn it off after he smiles, then it's a happy ending.
That's
You're just
it.
like, oh, wow, what a great ending.
Although I will say, I mean, both Element and I live in Southern California. If you guys come out, like we'll bring some bottles and then we'll just all drink and just cry about Star Wars. I feel like that would just be amazing.
Oh my god!
Star Wars Celebration 2022. You guys come out. We're doing it.
I really need someone other than my boyfriend to drink and yell about Star Wars with, because as much as he loves it too, sometimes he's like,
we've crossed the line.
I was talking about the podcast earlier. I was like, all right, this is like some of the notes that I have. This is what I'm going to say. And I was talking to him and he was like, remember to breathe when you do this.
Brooke, like, oh my God, on that topic. Oh my God, really quick. So after The Rise of Skywalker came out, he died. And I was like, and I remember in the theater, I was like, okay, like, no, you knew this was a possibility. Like, this is fine, yada, yada. And then I saw it Thursday night. And then I saw it again on Friday morning. I was a mess on Friday morning. I was like insane. And because I didn't sleep, I just laid awake. And then, and so we saw it Friday, Saturday comes, Sunday comes. And then Monday night, my husband was watching television and I was sitting, we have like two little couches. I'm sitting on the other couch and I'm staring at nothing. Like I am just sitting there, dead face. And this is days later, and he looked at me and he was like, honey, are you okay? And I looked at him and I just burst into tears. And he was so like he came up to, he's like, I know that he meant a lot to you. He was such a good partner. And I'm like heavy crying. And I'm like, I just don't understand why they would do that, and then I got it out and I was like, okay, the healing can begin now. And just, oh man, it's wild. Like I'm usually so logical with fiction. Like I'm very emotional, but like I'm very logical. And I'm like, characters die. And I'm like, okay, this character is dead. I'm sad, but we're moving on. This narratively makes sense. But man, this guy, there's something there, man. Like I just had a moment.
Effect. Yeah. I think I saw it so many times in the theater because I was like repressing the feelings that I knew that were going to come. And like even after I saw The Last Jedi, it was the same. I graduated in December from college, and I remember like walking like across the stage being like, but what's gonna happen? Like shaking hands with like the president and being like, thank you, but also Star Wars.
Yeah. Give me okay. Yeah.
And also, full disclosure with Marilu, the first time I had her come on the podcast was I was doing episode 2, and she had some takes on Amidala, and I didn't know who to get to come for episode 2 because it's no one's favorite. My thing is I want it to be someone's favorite thing when that's what we're talking about. And so she was kind of came on an awesome job, and I did the same thing with Solo. I found 2 people. Solo is their favorite, and Marilu also really liked it, and so I was like, okay, I know what topic she wants to talk about, so I have to invite her to that one because she's been so awesome and kind.
Oh, so, I love Attack of the Clones. I have very fond memories. But you are right though. It's like Attack of the Clones is no one's favorite.
I've come to terms that it's in my top 3. Like the middle children are my top 3. And I'm unashamed about it now.
Hell yeah. I have super fond memories of Attack of the Clones. I love it.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. This was such an awesome podcast, and I have a lot more stuff to contemplate that I had not thought of before. So thank you for that, and for my 2s later. But please follow everyone that was here on the podcast, and if you want awesome stuff, check out Brooke's Etsy store, which is Far Away
Factory. Yes,
Far Away Factory.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good.
Should make some excellent stuff. But yeah, love you all, and may the Force be with you.
Thank you so much.
Force be with you.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Bye.